Sorry about that, guys. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. I'm trying to switch scenes, but it keeps on restarting my previous scene there. All right. Well, welcome to Patriot Corner with Dr. Hill Law. I'm Dr. Hill, your host. I'm going to try a new, different, try something a little different tonight. I'm gonna, okay. Hold on. All right. Sorry. Okay. I'm going to try something a little new tonight. I'm going to try to do a little more freeform than what I do usually do, which I usually just do straight from the script. I was just trying to make sure I had one more thing done here before I get fully started. Thought I was going to be able to get it done in a minute and 20 seconds, but that didn't quite work out that way. Almost had enough time to get everything in it I needed, but it's just going to take me another second here. I've just got to get these categories marked on here so I don't. There we go. All right, everything is started. So tonight, what I was wanting to do is obviously this some big news stories this week. Well, the main story this week that's been all over the news was obviously the tragic mass shooting in New York City, and that kept for a day or two. But obviously, then it died out because it didn't fit the shooter didn't fit the media's narratives. He was not white. He wasn't a racist. He wasn't doing it for a terrorist reason or didn't have a political ideology behind or anything like that. He was a black male who had mental problems, and that doesn't fit their narrative. So, of course, they covered because of the police officer who's lost his life and the three other people that lost their lives that were residents there. And you still hear about it. But if it had been a terrorist or if it had been a white shooter, like at a high school or something like that, it would have carried the news narratives for the rest of the week. Even though literally on Sunday, President Trump signed one of the largest trade deals in history, secured another $1.1 trillion in finance and investments for for the state. I mean, for the country. He also just secured another. Was it roughly? I think it was a couple more trillion now coming out of South Korea, which also now South Korea will charge no tariffs for any stuff that we export to. Obviously, stuff coming out of there coming in here will be 15%. We'll get into talking about that, the economic parts of it later. And then obviously all the news stations and everything are still sitting there and complaining and whining and crying about, oh, the economy's bad, even though when every other number says it's different, even though they'll try to say, oh, well, look at the underlying numbers of the estimates for the rest of the year and stuff. Well, yeah, those same estimates were wrong for the first 6 months of the year. What makes you think they're not going to be wrong the rest of the year? But the main big things that happened today were that President Trump, which you didn't hear much of, probably hear much about it, but he did sign a new VA home loan bill into act, which this little part is what I am going to use for. I'm going to use a little bit of scripting for this. So, yeah, President Trump today signed the VA Home Loan Program Reform Act, HR 1815, into law. This bipartisan piece of legislation is designed to provide greater assistance to veterans who are struggling with their mortgage payments and to help prevent foreclosures on VA-backed home loans. I don't know if you're familiar with VA home loans or anything like that, but while yes, VA home loans get you lower interest rates, they get you approved with lower income ratings. It's easier to get approvals, easier to get rid of your house. You don't have to have 20% down, don't have to pay PIP, all that. But what most people don't understand is that if you get a VA home loan and you go before this bill, the only steps they had for you, if you got behind on your payments, was they would give you a 90-day like timeline where they wouldn't charge you any late fees or um, count necessarily put you in back owed mode or whatever. But at the end of those 90 days, you had to pay everything you owed. Or if you can't do that, then you had maybe like another 30 or 60 days to either refinance the loan and or finance an equity loan to cover that previous amount. So this is going to help take care of that. Unfortunately, and because all the benefits you get with a VA backed loan, you cannot use a forbearance or a deferment like you can with most homes, where most mortgages, if you can't make your payments for a couple months, you just defer it till the end of the mortgage. So your mortgage gets extended by 3 or 4 months. Obviously, it significantly and substantially raises your interest rates, but you at least don't lose your house. And hopefully, later on in your life, when you're more have or making more money, can afford better payments, you can make those back payments up, and so you're not paying too much more interest. So what this one does to address foreclosure prevention is it has a partial claim program. The most significant aspect of the new law is that the establishment of a permanent partial claim program. This allows the Department of Veterans Affairs to pay a portion of a veteran's missed mortgage payments to the loan holder. In exchange, the VA obtains a secured interest in the property subordinate to the first lien. This aims to bring the veterans' loans current without requiring them to refinance or alter their original loan terms. This program replaces the temporary Veterans Affairs Servicing Purchase Program that was ended in May 2025. Increased VA authority, the law gives the VA more direct power to intervene and work with lenders to prevent foreclosures. This includes the ability to pay off part of a loan to keep a veteran in their home. Mandatory loss mitigation procedures lenders are now required to follow prescribed loss mitigation procedures, including offering a sequence of options such as payment forbearance or loan restructuring to veterans before moving to foreclosure, which before they never did that. And then also, it's supposed to help cut the red tape, streamline assistance. The new law is intended to speed up the process of providing help to veterans, reducing red tape and delays, and the VA ability to offer assistance. Other notable provisions is a permanent suspension of the buyer paid agent commissions. So before, it was illegal for any part of that VA home loan or VA part to pay a buyer agent's commissions. So now the law makes permanent the suspension of the VA's previous rule that prohibited buyers from paying real estate agent commissions on loans. This change aims to make VA buyers more competitive in the housing market, especially in areas where sellers might not cover agent fees. Because pretty much in any area where an agent wouldn't cover the fees, if you were trying to buy a home with a VA home loan, that real estate agent may say, nope, I'm not going to get paid. I'm not going to do it. Or you're going to have to pay them out of your pocket. You're going to have to come up with an extra down payment to cover the cost. So that was another big thing that's going to help with it. And then now you don't have to worry about, now you can get more access to buying more homes because you don't have to worry about the real estate agents not getting paid or having to pay them on top of your down payment. So then there also supposed to be increased funding for homeless veterans. So the bill expands funding for transitional housing programs under the VA's Grant Per Diem GPD program and supports other provisions aimed at addressing veteran homelessness. So this bill's got some major, especially if you're a veteran or have family who are veterans, because it's also supposed to help even broaden the amount of people who are qualified for the veterans loan, including spouses of former military, so people that have passed away or anything like that. And I forgot the full broadness of it, but it's also supposed to help broaden out the availability for people who are qualified for the home loan, where before it was just strictly active duty veterans, or you had to meet certain standards to qualify for it. So they're supposed to extend that, help remove the red tape. I think the biggest thing that's out of this bill is the ability for you to have some type of forbearance or deferment or government loan paying off if you get behind in your payments or you lose a job or something, you're unemployed for a couple months. Because if you're unemployed for a couple months, very many people that can come up with 3 months worth of mortgages after they've been unemployed for 3 months. No, pretty much it was hard while you got with the VA home loan, while you got the benefits of getting the lower interest rate, easier approvals, lower to zero down payment, and no PIP. You didn't have that protection to where if you were at a regular loan, you could have said, hey, can I defer my payments? I need to defer 3 months worth of payments. I'm looking for a new job. Yeah, sure. We'll defer you 3 payments because they're going to just tack it on the end. You'll be 3 years longer, 8 years of extra interest. You're going to tack all that extra interest on each one of those payments. So when you do start paying again, you're going to have even less money that will actually go towards your principal. More of it's going to be going towards the increased interest because your interest kept charging on each of those months that didn't go down. So that's a big aspect of it that will be nice. Also, please let me know, chatting, engaging. That's really what's going to help make this a better program, a better live, is if people ask questions, comment. I am streaming through Restream, so I could, if somebody commented and wanted to come up and debate or ask some questions, I can share a link and do a multi-guest on it. I think I can do up to 6 people. But obviously, definitely messaging, comments, that would be a big help. So it'll help make the show, especially in a free form format like this. Hopefully, I've found somebody that possibly will is going to at least try out and start with being a guest or whatever on the show a couple times, see how well that goes, and then possibly be a co-host. And that will be making a whole lot easier to freeform because then you're not having to think of stuff and topics and everything to say for 45 minutes to an hour, especially when you've got, I mean, I've got over 13 people in here, but nobody's really engaging or texting, commenting, anything like that. I mean, obviously, it looks like right now the majority of the people that I have on here are all from my X account, which is all good. But yeah, unfortunately, X doesn't have all the stuff that you have on most of your uh, sites. But all right, well, I'll get on to number two part is I've obviously I was talking about earlier how President Trump decided one of the largest trade deals, and then you really didn't hear much about that. And then today, the GDP and all the numbers came in, and it's amazing that they try to say, "Oh, the GDP was negative 0.5% at the beginning of the first quarter of 2024. That's all because of Trump." No, it was negative 1.6% the fourth quarter of 2025. That was Biden. When President Trump came into office on January the 20th, which means some of that negative 0.5% was due to Biden, all of Biden's policies, because Trump just didn't come in magic day one and all of his policies are automatically in effect. Because even though he did sign like 100 and some odd executive orders, executive office of memorandum orders, those take 30, 60, 90 days to go into effect. Those don't go in effect day one. Once you issue that executive order, then the people that are under that department that order is asking them to change, they have to go and actually figure out and do a study of how can they change their policies and procedures to meet that goal. And then if it's a large enough of a procedural change, then they actually have to submit that to Congress and it has to be approved by both houses, the Senate and the House. So it just doesn't go in effect day one. So to say that, oh, because Trump came in and did say he was going to do all this stuff, that it was no, that was under Biden. But since end of Biden's term, the first 6 months, President Trump has gotten that GDP from negative 0.5% to 3%, meaning he gained over 3.5%. Well, 3%, 3% would have got us to 2.5. So yeah, 3.5% total GDP and growth. Now, a lot of them are going to say it's insane that they talk about this. And it's funny how they'll sit there and be like, oh, but look at this numbers and that numbers. Well, y'all been wrong the whole year. The original estimated amount for GDP was for the quarter two was 2.3. It came in at 3%, which is a major increase from what it was. And it's also annual increase over the previous year. And then the notable turnaround from the first quarter of 2025, which, like I said, we had a 0.5% decrease. So it's a 3.5% increase from the first quarter. And now a lot of them primarily attribute this to decrease in imports because for some reason, the way our GDP is calculated, it's weird. You subtract imports from the GDP calculation and an increase in consumer spending, which here's another good positive sign for the economy. If consumers were so worried about the economy and so worried about the economy going bad, then you would have seen consumer spending go down, not up. We saw consumer spending increase from 0.5% to 1.4%. So obviously, consumers are feeling better about the economy, feeling better about their pocketbooks, or they would not have spent more money. Now, the price index for gross domestic product purchases increased by 1.9%, and the personal consumption expenditures price index increased by 2.1%. Excluding food and energy, the PCE price index increased by 2.5%. Now, while some economists noted that real financial sales to private domestic purchase or consumer spending plus fixed investment, which is some consider to be a better measure of underlying demand, increased by a more modest 1.2% in quarter two, down from 1.9% in quarter one. Now, either way, it's still an increase overall, but it's not negative. Now, this is different counting. It's depending on how you look at it economically, exactly the way you want to count it. But either way, the economy is growing. GDP grew. And we're a developed country. I mean, we're not, people are going to be like, oh, well, India's got 6% estimated GDP. China's got an estimate of 4% GDP for the whole year. Well, those are developing nations. All right, so they should be seeing large amounts of growth in GDP, but we are a developed nation. So unless there's a massive economic shift in our country that has caused everything to go down real quick, and now we need major growth to get that back up, you're not going to see that. And that's the thing is people forget also you can't compare what our economic growth is to a developing nation. We're a developed nation, which means our GDP is never going to be as large as those countries because they're still growing. We don't have much room to grow. We're already grown. We're developed. Obviously, we don't want to see our GDP negative, but we're not going to see 6, 7, 8, 9% like some other developing nations will. But if you actually look at, let me pull it up on this. I'm going to pull it up real quick and then I'll put it on the, I gotta remember where I put this at. I did a little picture cutout for a post I did today. I'm gonna get it open up and then I'll get the screen shared and show it real quick. Okay, so if you actually look at it, in 2024, from quarter one, it dropped all the way to quarter three. It rose up a little quarter four, but if you look at the GDP, it shot up through the first quarter of 2025. So under Biden, it went down almost his whole last year and then went up a little bit, and then it really shot up under President Trump right in there. So this thing that, oh, it was good under Biden is not, no. Don't think so. Biden's one of the reasons why we're in the position we're in. And then I'm going to kind of swing back to what we saw with the shooting in New York and stuff. And obviously I haven't seen as much this time because it was, like we said, it was in an office building, rich area town. So it's not getting as much. The shooter doesn't meet their normal anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment agenda because they can't rile up their base because he literally does. He's not the bad guy. He's not the white racist. He's a black guy, so they can't go that way. But obviously what he said in his suicide note, what the letter said, and that's another reason they don't want to go to bat, is because in this one, the argument goes to the fact is it's not about the gun laws for purchasing guns. He didn't even buy the gun legally. He bought it from his friend or a boss of his. And it had nothing to do with the laws. It had to do with the fact that his mental health. It has to do with the problem that we have a mental health issue in this country, not a problem with our gun laws. You can look, everybody will say, oh, we have way more mass shootings than Europe or England or any of the Eastern European countries, whatever. Yeah, look at their mass stabbings. Look at how many mass stabbings they have, and the people that they have die from knife stabbings or sword fight, people being chopped up with like swords or machetes or something. Somebody will always find a weapon if they want to cause mayhem. If they want to cause mayhem and kill people, they will find a way to do it. So whether that's with whether that's roadside bombs or whether that's suicide vests or whether that's ammunition, they will find a way to do it. Whether it's knives, swords, they will find a way if they want. Where there's a will, there's a way. It's not the weapon, it's the person carrying the weapon. We need to worry more about our society that's literally being desensitized to violence. Because I thought it was funny. So we went out to my grandparents' ranch for 4th of July, and I had my 45 with me, and my kids have never seen a gun fired off, and they're like, oh, we know what they sound like, because they were saying, they were trying to tell me, oh, the firecrackers are loud. They're loud like a gun. I said, no. So I pulled my 45 out, set up a target. I pulled that and I go, does that sound like a firework? They go, no. Yeah. Like I said, it doesn't. I was like, that. Now y'all know the difference between a firework and a firearm. There is a major difference. But it has to do with them people just being desensitized with everything. And then what I think is funny is nobody's talking about the major trade deal. They'll say, oh, there's a 15% reciprocal tariff. Well, the whole point of those tariffs is obviously is to allow the American companies to compete better with the foreign companies. So obviously, at first, we're going to see a little price increase, but people stop buying from those foreign countries to purchase from American companies. Guess what? Now those American companies are selling more, which means they can now order more, which means they can get a economy of scale purchase and actually bring their prices down. Or if they are foreign country companies who were actually used to be American but moved out of the United States because it was cheaper to ship in the US from outside because we were charging zero tariffs while everybody else was charging us 15, 20, 30, 45, 50%. That's why we did it. So there's going to be a little bit of a price increase at the beginning, but honestly, we're not going to see reason why I haven't seen the massive increases that they thought they were going to is because of the tax credits that have been put in. So obviously, the tax cuts that we're going to increase at the end of this year are permanent now, and even some of the business tax credits who had already ended, and that these businesses were preparing for to increase it already increase. And well, obviously, once they file their next tax year, even though they may increase now, they don't see it now. They see it whenever they do their taxes. This doesn't happen before the fact; it happens after the fact. But still, now that those interest rates are down, they have nothing to do. They have nothing to worry about. So that comes down to that. And I gotta text my youngest one to go down, get my youngest one because he is yelling my name and my wife isn't home yet. He's supposed to be down there watching for me. But all right, yeah. So I mean, it's funny how they don't want to talk about 1.1 trillion investments, and that's roughly almost over $5 trillion that President Trump has gotten us in the last 6 months of investments guaranteed over the next 5 to 10 years. And another funny thing about it is how these leftist economists still want to go off of these numbers. And that's why I'm not even reading through all the estimated numbers that say, oh, this is why the economy is not as good as it looks. Because all those numbers were the same that are saying what they are now, said that first thing in the first quarter and the second quarter. And we outperformed the whole second quarter and even outperformed the first quarter, except for the very beginning of it. We outperformed towards the end and outperformed the whole second quarter. So all these economic doomsdayers and economists, it's pointless to read their numbers because they're not showing out like they think they're supposed to. Everything is literally doing different than what they originally thought it was going to do. Because the difference is what theirs is looking at is theory versus reality. Stuff may theoretically you want it to look one way, but it actually works a totally different way in reality. And President Trump is showing you that if you actually try to run a country like a business, it works. I mean, just the investments that he's got coming in, the amount and the tariffs. If you think if we end up bringing in over if we end up bringing $500 million in tariff revenue every year, think of the trillions of dollars that pays off in the next 10 years. That's like 5-6 trillion in the next 10 years versus in the small amount. I may have to get off of here then. I may have to just end this early. I was hoping to do a full 45 minutes tonight, but I haven't even been on here 25. But my one kid was supposed to be down there watching my oldest one, but he's got his therapy, which I forgot he had today. Let me get my other son to watch, see if I can get my oldest one to watch him. And if not, I might just have to go put this on pause and then go get him. I guess he can come in here and play. All right, let me see that, and then hopefully he'll watch him. Yeah, so it's just hilarious that they're talking about that's where everybody's going with it. I just think it's hilarious. And then Zohran Mamdani today, he tries to come back. He comes back from his vacation and literally just walks back everything he said about the police, anti-police, anti-that. Then sits there because literally people are attacking him on it. Then he tries to go and be all hypocritical and say, well, why they're attacking him on this and that? Why he's doing the same thing because he said they're doing it for political points when he's doing the exact same thing right there in front of the camera, walking back everything he said since he ever started politics. That he was anti-cops, defund the police, anti all of that. I'm sorry, New York, but y'all are gonna New York is going to, if this guy gets elected, New York is going to fall apart. I mean, the good thing is a lot of the stuff he wants to do, or that a lot of the policies that he would like to implement and stuff can't be done because it's at the city level, not the state level. Where a lot of this, yes, there are obviously city regulations and city rules and city ordinances and all that, but the majority of them have to line up with the state government, the governor and the state laws. All right. I'm gonna put this on. I'm gonna have to pause it for a second, and I'm gonna have to do a pause for a second, then be right back. I gotta go get my little one out. All right, I'm done. There we go. I'm back. Sorry about that. Had to leave for a minute. Had to go make sure my son was watching my youngest one. Yeah, it would be really nice if I could get some people in here chatting, making some comments and stuff, so we can get a really good conversation going on. Get some stuff going on in here. Everything. Maybe asking some questions. Get a little more. Because I'm trying to do this free form versus having a 45-minute skit or 45 minutes worth of not really skit, but a 45-minute show planned on scripting. I mean, some of today's I had scripted because obviously some of these numbers just came out today. So instead of having to print out paper and have pieces of paper and sit wasting ink and paper and stuff, it's easier just to put it on the prompter in front of this camera and go off of that. But yeah, I mean, so it's one of those things where if we can get some conversation going in here, and also please share, like, subscribe. uh YouTube is not, I don't have enough followers or haven't built enough views time on YouTube to do subscriptions yet, but you can go through Rumble. You can go to my, either go to Rumble and do it through there through my local channel, or you can go to my website, which you can see that scrolling across the ticker on the bottom of the page. Check out the website where you can capture get see all of my previous episodes and everything that I've done as far as podcasts go. And then also from there, you can hit the you can either register on my website for free, which gets you access to the weekly blogs, which right now I just started the site, so I haven't really started doing them because there's nobody signed up yet until I start getting people sign up on the website. Also, the reason why I'm trying to get people to sign up to the website is so, because the fact that I do have kids. I was trying to do this 3 nights a week, but I don't think that's going to work. I'm probably going to have to cut it down to 2 or 1 nights a week, at least for now, until hopefully, if I can ever actually get enough viewers and everything to where I can actually monetize on this, and then maybe I can start doing it 3 nights a week. But for now, that also the time frame is kind of hard to set exactly because of the fact me and my wife only have one car right now, so it's, I never know when I'm gonna have to watch kids. She's not going to be home. We've got a 3-year-old, a 12-year-old, 13-year-old. Usually, sometimes the 12 and 13-year-old, I can trust them to watch them for 30, 45 minutes. Other times, I have to be the one out there making sure that they're actually watching him. So that's why I'm trying to get people to register on the website, because then if I have your email, I can email you what time and days I'm going to do the episodes. I think right now I'm just going to be doing Wednesday and Fridays, but I don't know if I'm going to get started at 6, 7, what. So that helps. Or you can hit the join or subscribe button on the website, which that takes you to my locals channel through Rumble, or my locals page through Rumble, which obviously there you can subscribe to support the show, gain access to extra content and other stuff like that. Or some, eventually I'll be doing subscriber only episodes and stuff like that. That might be the ones I throw for the third day a week, is to do subscriber only episodes. So that'll be that. And then obviously your active engagement and question and comments, responses, all that stuff helps make this a better podcast, helps grow it, helps me understand if you want more in-depth explanations about stuff or where I should go with the show, which way I should take the direction. Like I said, hopefully I'm about to have a co-host, which that'll really help. I'm not going to announce name or the creator yet, but he's while I have a doctorate in law and policy, I'm more on the administrative side. I'm not a lawyer. He's on the law side. We're also both veterans, but he's was in 10 years. I was in nowhere near that long. He was also more recently, so he's got more connections that way and a whole lot more knowledge on that side. Plus, he's more on the actual criminal aspects of law and prosecuting or stuff like that type of law. Where on mine, it's more the administrative side, so like zoning regulations, public policy, legislation, stuff like that. So I think it'll be a really cool mix together. And then we'll have to see how that goes and then just go from there. But that's the goal, is hopefully eventually have that. And then once I get that, then I know I won't need a script because I mean, obviously I'll have, like I did today, I'll have little sections where I put a script up there for data information or anything like that. So I'm not misspeaking or forgetting something without having to look at notes and look down and not looking at you all the time. And then also there'll be some other stuff, but yeah, I mean, I just think it's been crazy this week with the way the left's been attacking the economy when it's been doing the opposite of what they say. And then you have one of the largest trade deals. Nobody's really been talking about that. And obviously, we had the other big story that came out today, which I'd forgotten about this. I didn't put up on my notes, but I made a post about this earlier, is that the fact that Cash Patel just came out with the announcement that he had found a hidden room within the FBI that literally had burn bags of classified or above classified material sitting in it, and they all had to do with the so-called Russian collusion probe, really the Russian collusion hoax. And why are you going for a case that's not those papers, if they have not been given to the archives to be stored in the National Archives, because that's where every paper that is involved in a federal case, whether they actually used it in the final report or not, still has to be put into the National Archives, whether it's redacted fully and labeled classified or whatever. It has to be put in there. It can't just be thrown in a burn bag and given away. That's when stuff is old or you've digitized it. But I'm going to bet that the majority of that stuff that's paper that was in burn bags had not been digitized. It probably was stuff that they were trying to get rid of and keep from getting to the eyes of the American people. Now, obviously, all that stuff is going to be handed up now that President Trump has signed an executive order to have all that stuff declassified. Now, obviously, is going to go from the FBI is going to take what they have. They're going to turn it over to the congressional committee that deals with that type of stuff. Then, obviously, the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, the DNI are going to do all that. And then it will be the congressional committee that will actually have to go through everything and decide if there's certain things in there that are too that could actually expose any current intel gathering techniques or people or assets, ruin an asset or something like that. And obviously they'll have to keep that part redacted or whatever. But I just can't wait to see what it comes out with, because it seems like the more and more they reach it, and you wonder if this is what also Bongino was talking about, that he saw that just made him, he couldn't understand how he could keep running a republic like this. And it makes me wonder if this was one of those reasons. It was some of the papers that he read that were inside of this report from the FBI and stuff that were part of the annex for the Durham report that literally would have given up. If anybody looked at it, it would have gone pretty much literally showing that they were being taken advantage of, that they're literally being run around by the Clinton campaign. And that was the only thing running them. And that was the only thing doing it. And I just think that's hilarious. And then also this Sidney Sweeney thing, my God, people, doing a jeans commercial and using a parody of jeans, Genes, versus actually doing a blue jeans commercial, doing a blue jeans commercial and parodying it off of the DNA genes, or Genes, versus Jeans. It's hilarious that they're going all this apoplectic, because Sidney Sweeney, a beautiful blonde-haired, blue-eyed sex symbol actress that was literally they said something stupid about the car thing. It's like, okay, This is literally a knockoff of a Brooke Shields ad back in the 60s. And why are they going to have a big fat girl do? Okay, you put people in the ads that look like your customers. Not to say that all of their customers look as beautiful as Sidney Sweeney, but they don't sell big women clothes at American Eagle. Just like they don't sell fat man clothes at American Eagle. The biggest they sell in men's is like maybe a double XL. And I think maybe a 38, 40 waist at the biggest. Women's, they don't sell above a 12. They don't sell fat girl clothes. So why are you going to have Lizzo or somebody like that come do an ad for you, run an ad campaign at American Eagle when no, and not to say that black people don't wear American Eagle, but it's a very small percentage of their customers. Nothing. It's just not who they advertise to. It's not their market share of the market. That's not it. The majority of the people who shop at American Eagle are middle to upper, well, actually, really upper middle class to rich white people. That's just the way it is. It's the style. It's nothing racist. It's nothing. It's not being a Nazi or it's not being any of that. It's just literally fact. And God forbid that they actually put a woman in the clothes instead of some dude that claims he's a girl. Or God forbid that they do only one girl versus having to put or is like the Democrats love to say it is they don't even have a token black girl, a token Asian. Really? It was a single ad. You don't need a bunch of models in it. You took one person. Sidney Sweeney didn't come out as a conservative. She didn't come out as a Republican. She didn't come out as a Trump supporter. And the left is going apoplectic and saying that, oh, this is even more. That's the problem with the left is everything to them is emotions and attacks. So they're looking for everything they look at from the aspect of, oh, can that be racist? Can that be considered Nazi propaganda? Can this be this? Can this offend me? Really grow up, people. Y'all do stuff that I don't like all the time, but do I let it offend me or call y'all out on it? No, I just keep on walking. You live your life the way you want to live it. Until you affect my life, I don't care. But literally, it's like on social media. I've seen some of the comments that leftists leave on my post and everything. I'm just like, keep scrolling, dumbass. If you don't like what I have to say, if you don't like what my views are, then move. Because I'm sorry to tell you that in the political world, it's not black and white. There's not right and wrong. There's not, oh, because you believe one thing that makes you ignorant or unintelligent because somebody else feels something different about the same subject. That's just the way you interpret the reading. Just like the fact that there's even very few Supreme Court rulings or when it comes to Constitution or it comes to the amendments in the constitutions that are just black and white. That's what they mean. Almost any time there has been a Supreme Court ruling to rule whether something is constitutional or unconstitutional, every once in a while you have a 9-0, but usually you have an 8-1 or a 7-2 or a 6-3 or a 5-4 split, which means just because I'd say at the time it was a Democratic run Supreme Court, and so the Democrats ruled something that was constitutional that the Republicans don't believe is constitutional. That doesn't mean that we're wrong or unintelligent because we believe it's unconstitutional. That's just our view on the point. And now that it's a Republican or originalist held Supreme Court means it could get reversed and be in 5-4 the opposite way. So nothing is black and white. I could give a group of 5 people the same constitutional amendment with all the sub amendments to it and articles to it, and not none of them would write the same thing. Maybe something a little similar, but they would not. Each one would see that and understand that constitutional amendment differently. You might get lucky enough to have 2 of the same out of 5 people, but in reality, it's probably going to be all 5 different things. There might be some similarities in it, but they're going to be different because people interpret and read stuff differently. They don't interpret and read it the same. And that's what people forget. And that's where this stuff goes hilarious. It's just hilarious to me the way these Democrats will go. and they want to rule everything on emotion today instead of ruling on intellect and intelligent debate. They want to sit there and start calling you names or insulting you the second they don't agree with you, versus actually trying to come up with a alternative solution to that policy. They won't even entertain it to tell you what they would do to fix it. Just like I was reading this thing that Cameron executive about, but it said, "Oh, we we want to cure homelessness." Well, everybody would love to do away with homelessness, but it's not that simple. You can't just say, "I want homelessness to end," and it ends. If there was an easy, simple solution to it, homelessness would have been ended 150, 200 years ago, 500 years ago. No group of people has ever wanted people to be homeless or not have a place to live or not have a roof over their head. But it's just the fact that you're always going to have homeless people because people will always be lazy. There will always be people who don't get up, do the work that's required to pay for the house. All the way back to the biblical days, you've had it. It's not something that's new.